Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is BIA Kelsey Live. I'm Mitch Ratcliffe, your co-host, and of course I'm joined, as always, by Mike Bolin, Chief Analyst at BIA Kelsey. How you doing today, Mike? How's San Francisco?
Hey, Mitch. It's great. Good weather. It's Friday. All good things.
Spring is here. The allergens are in the air. It's a marvelous time to be alive, isn't it?
Indeed.
Well, as usual, we're going to be talking about the local media and marketing space. A lot going on in the world, but we want to focus on three stories this week. And the first one we want to talk about is Pinterest, which is making a big move into small and medium-sized businesses. Why don't you tell us about it, Mike?
Sure. So, a lot of SMB-related items today. And yeah, the first one comes from Pinterest, which has announced a native ad offering called Pinterest Propel. So it's specifically packaged and priced for SMBs and small agencies. And, by native, what I mean is that it's an ad unit that looks and feels just like organic Pinterest listings and pins. And it merges with the Pinterest content flow and UI. It's all those attributes of native social advertising that we examine closely in our mobile ad forecast. And we have a free white paper on that for anyone interested. And we've discussed it a great deal on past episodes of this podcast. But the move here from Pinterest, I think, aligns with what we've been saying for the past year or so regarding the growth of native social. But interestingly, it's also doing something we've been looking at closely and predicting, which is a move to target SMBs. And that's been something we've been kind of watching and waiting for Pinterest for a few years now. I've been talking to them directly a few times about their plans there, and they've been kind of quiet. But this revelation, I think, they're explicitly targeting SMBs is, I think, a big deal. And I think, the reason why is, my read on that is, it's pretty clear what they're doing here and why they're doing it. And this is really a revenue diversification play moving towards another big thing that they've revealed lately, which is the intention to go public. And, diversified revenue is a key metric of valuation and stability for public market investors, as we all know. Now, what they've actually announced specifically, as I mentioned, it's a native ad package, and it's priced and packaged for SMBs. And what I mean by that is that there is a lot of kind of hand-holding and education baked in, and it's kind of what SMBs need, as we know. So it entails a $100 per day ad commitment. And what you get for that is $100 worth of native ad placements a day, but also the bonus of lots of kind of ad creation and management tutorials and hand-holding, and that includes live agent help for customized ad creation, and for small agencies it offers up to that service for up to 3 clients at that price point. So the question that arises from all of this that I'll pose to you, Mitch, is, will SMBs bite? Because, based on what we know about them from our market analysis and LCM study, is this aligned with their behavior? And furthermore, the math suggests a $3,000 per month ad spend, or roughly $36,000 per year. So where does that place this product in terms of the SMB continuum? How big is that segment? And does this align with their behavior, I guess? Go ahead.
Well, so we have long broken the SMB market into two groups: core and plus.
Yep.
Core are people who spend, or businesses that spend less than $25,000 a month, and they represent the vast majority of the market, more than 65% of it. And what their average spending is about $3,200 a year across all their marketing channels. So this clearly is priced well above that group.
Yeah.
They also tend to be the people who look for self-service and the cheapest possible way to get their message out. Now, on the other hand, the plus spenders who spend more than $25,000 and who on average are spending well over $70,000 a year across all their channels are looking for more support, more engagement from an agency. And in this case, Pinterest is offering to be on the phone helping you do this, even write some of the ads, as I understand it.
Yep, that's true.
So this is very well fitted for our plus spenders. Now, they're also the more aggressive promoters in terms of offering lower prices and offers that get you into the store. And I think that's a really good fit with what Pinterest is doing with this content marketing as well. So looks like a very solid investment in extending their revenue into the small business space. using exactly the values that we've identified in the Local Commerce Monitor survey. That is greater support and service, essentially not a DIY, but a do-it-with-me model.
Yeah.
And once you get to do it with me, you ultimately find people moving into do it for me. So I think you can expect at some point in the future Pinterest or Pinterest in partnership with agencies to go to a full do-it-for-me model as well.
Interesting. So it sounds like it's well aligned at that plus spender kind of behavior.
Right.
And, another thing that comes to mind there is at that plus spender level, there tends to be a designated marketing person. It's not just the proprietor running around doing it themselves, which lends itself to not necessarily full self-service, but as you mentioned, there's a little bit of effort required here for someone to kind of manage it. Even though there's some Pinterest hand-holding, there still requires some management, and I think that is something that can be done or manageable by some of these plus spenders based on their kind of designated resources.
Absolutely. The plus spenders are the groups, are the companies that actually have started to hive off some of their resources and actually dedicate them to marketing.
Yeah.
Now, the problem, and we harp on this all the time on BIA Kelsey Live, that most of the tools for marketing automation today are not right-sized for small business.
Yeah.
They're built for teams instead of for one person who's trying to manage the marketing on behalf of a group of offerings. So I think this is a really interesting step in the right direction for Pinterest in lowering the bar in terms of complexity.
Yeah, interesting.
And once you do that, I think you have an opportunity to offer more and more services that enhance the experience. So, their goal will not be to charge more for that consultation, but to get you to spend more on Pinterest. So I would think that the model here will go from $100 a day to $200 a day to $300 a day and kind of tier up. And that'll be a great way for them to segment their market and really find all of the key points of value.
Yeah, so we'll be watching that closely for the SMB uptake, any pricing changes as you mentioned, but also what impact this has on its proposed IPO if that ends up happening.
And there's a lot of IPO. Well, there's a lot of IPO activity. Before we jump to the next one, it's interesting because Blue Apron also retained a bank today to work with them on their IPO.
Yep, Yext.
Following Yext a couple of weeks ago, we're going to see, Uber may try to do an IPO. Who knows whether they can anymore?
Yeah.
But there's a real move towards local-facing IPOs. Delivery services, all of this is going to be good for Pinterest too, because Pinterest is a female-dominated kind of sharing community that is perfect for getting that kind of local media and marketing message out.
Yep, and those local local IPO dynamics for anyone interested. We spent last episode really digging deep into that. That's episode 19, which you can find on the BIA Kelsey blog. But moving on, and speaking of SMB buying behavior and social media, native social, all of that, the next item that you've been looking at a lot really kind of tackles that as well. So tell us about Snapchat and what our LCM survey has indicated.
Well, so Local Commerce Monitor, which we do a survey of 1,000 businesses every year and break it out so that we cover the plus and the core very completely. We found that Snapchat is on the rise. However, it is still a fairly marginal channel for the SMB. Only 4.1% of small businesses are using Snapchat for promotion right now. And it's out of the 13 different channels that we tracked in the last survey, the 11th. So it is something that is just starting to catch on with SMBs. The interesting thing is the response that they got. So our survey respondents said that for the most part, Snapchat works. 3.8% of them got more than 20 times the return on spend. 40% got 10 to 19 times the spend, and 22% said they got 5 to 9. So those were all great results, great returns for using Snapchat. On the other hand, this is a service, I think, where you need better composition of the messages. You need to think about what you're putting out there. And that's shown or proven, I think, by the fact that a good 40% of the users of the service said that they didn't get really good results yet.
Yeah.
And this goes back to what we were talking about with Pinterest. Is there, with these social networks, it's not just a matter of putting the inventory out there because it's free and easy to use. It's to get a result. And that result requires management, which we were talking about Pinterest starting to offer. I would like to see Snapchat step up and say, we'll show you how to use our channel.
Yeah. So I'm not surprised by these results at all, the slow pickup among SMBs, and it's for the reason you stated. It actually requires some time and management, which those lower-end SMBs do not have. But I think there are some other things going on here as well. So Snapchat overall, I think, it has kind of like a double-edged sword in its advantages. It's extremely popular with millennials, as we know, but its focus on building the product so acutely for that demographic makes it actually pretty weak outside of that demographic. And, older folks pick it up and in a lot of cases don't understand how to use it. The interface is actually very confusing to newcomers. And, it's made moves to kind of fix that, to kind of ease some of the investor concern when leading up to its IPO. But my whole point is that if you look at the SMB kind of population universe, most of the actual proprietors are Gen X and baby boomers.
Right.
And a small share of that SMB population, in terms of the proprietors, are millennials. So it stands to reason that Snapchat affinity among SMBs as an ad tool, is lower when looking at it with that kind of demographic breakdown. And then I think the second factor is that, Snapchat is inherently more of a branding vehicle than a direct response one.
Right.
And it has strength in, massive reach and engagement. It's been with like stories and other things known to reach like Super Bowl sized audiences. Yep. And I think that those are the points of appeal for large brand advertisers and agencies. And that's exactly where its ad dollars are coming from. And it hasn't yet built the tools for kind of direct response or driving things like phone calls and foot traffic that SMBs care about. Some of that kind of stuff we talked about with Pinterest.
Well, and in some sense, they're not inherently local. They're inherently global.
Yeah, absolutely. Now they're starting to build local tools that I think are going to appeal to SMBs, which is the GeoFilters product. And I think they're increasingly going to put some muscle behind that. And those are the things that let you create a customized Snapchat filter. And those filters are, a core feature of Snapchat, but you can build one for your business. And then that filter can be available for Snapchat users to overlay over their snaps when in proximity of your business. And, I think the cool thing here is, for SMBs, this is very affordable. It's at a very SMB-friendly price point. It essentially costs $15 to have one of these customized filters that can be available for Snapchat users, again, around your location for 24 hours. So I think if anything is going to catch on among SMBs, it's going to be that GeoFilter product. But I think we're still too early in the adoption cycle, and that's why you see that slow uptake that's reported in the LCM figures.
Well, it's interesting. You're hitting on with the intergenerational aspects of this. Snapchat is really betting everything on the millennials right now.
Yeah, and in the U.S., I think it's almost not diversified enough, both demographically and then also geographically.
But they have completed their IPO, so we know that they're at least funded for a next big
validated
move.
To some degree. That's true.
And where I think that it would be interesting to have them work to improve their engagement would be to get people across generations involved in discussions. It's interesting. I'm deeply involved in some storytelling work these days with the Digital Narrative Alliance, and I was talking with a friend who related a story about HBO's programming head, who said, when we get a story with multiple generations, it's the episode where the generational connection is made that the show takes off. Mm-hmm. That was true with, I'm going to forget the name of that, the Middle Ages show.
Game of Thrones?
Game of Thrones. Yeah. It's not even the Middle Ages. It's some other world. But
it's the realm.
The generational connections is what made that show really stick. And it's also been the case with other HBO shows. They now look only for transgenerational programming. They don't want a story about just one generation. They want to see families. And that, I think, is great advice for companies like Snapchat to think about, who are stuck in one generation, to think about how do they reach out? How do they help that generation make a connection with their parents or their children? Mm-hmm. And when they start to do that, you get Facebook.
Yeah. Well, and that's actually, I mentioned the term double-edged sword before. That's a double-edged sword. I was going to say that what you're saying is good, but it also can be somewhat negative, because a lot of teens, tweens, and those even older millennials have begun to actually eject from Facebook because their parents are on it.
Right.
So there's a little bit of like, this is our space, and that's the appeal, but also what you're saying in terms of intergenerational communication. So I think that, it's hard to say the strategy they should go for, whether they're really strong and the master of one, as they say, among SMBs, or if they diversify and become a kind of hybrid tool for many generations, thus losing the specific appeal for one. And, I don't have the answer there, but I think that they're facing probably some very big decisions internally
Well, and I
where
think,
they go there.
yeah, I think it would be a mistake to focus on one generation and only one generation, only in the U.S. right now.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. So let's move on to the third item, which is Google making another move, and they're doing a lot of experimental stuff over the last few years into kind of on-demand, direct response types of features right from search results, and in this case about kind of fitness and appointment-based classes. So what's going on there?
Well, Google in December introduced Reserve with Google, which is in New York, San Francisco, and Los Angeles right now. It's the only place. And it is aimed at scheduling spa and workout sessions. And there's a very well-funded company, ClassPass, that's based in New York. Our good friend Joanna Lord, who spoke at the first local on-demand conference, has gone over and is the CMO there and has done a great job of building a real movement around exercise, particularly in and around the New York City area. However, here comes Google saying we will provide the same kind of scheduling, not the same kind of access to a group of gyms, but that's not something that is particularly a barrier to entry. That's a business development problem rather than an access problem. So I can certainly see if Google comes out and sells, we can also have the scheduling embedded in the ad and offer the ability to maybe even schedule across multiple locations. ClassPass is going to be in some real trouble in terms of being able to distinguish itself from the rest of the search space.
Yeah.
And but I also believe that because they've created a lifestyle site and a lifestyle set of apps, that is the insulation they have right now as Google starts to toy with scheduling. But it also, to me, portends a much wider move back into trying to schedule from inside the advertisement like they did several years ago.
Absolutely. So I think that, it's always scary whenever Google enters your territory. For ClassPass, you're right, they may be insulated based on a few things. They have developed a very loyal fan base. They've actually been through kind of a tumultuous past where their initial economic model, which was almost too good to be true, ended up being too good to be true. They had to raise their prices, lost a lot of users, but I think that they've recouped that in a lot of ways and have a very strong user base. Now, the question is if whether or not Google can displace some of that. And I think that comes down to a question of, is there enough of a pain point there, to have the scheduling functionality right within search results? Is that enough of a benefit than what was there before, such as opening the ClassPass app, which again people are very loyal to, but among new customers, is that something that is eliminating some sort of pain point, which was otherwise to drill down a few layers into a site, into a booking engine? But the aggregation aspect of this is interesting. They're giving a one-stop shop to do it, which is actually the same thing that ClassPass does. So I think that if it's going to beat ClassPass, it's going to come down to that kind of loyalty and user affinity point, but also the economics. Again, this is a business model that has very tight margins. Again, ClassPass has had some trouble with it. And Google is the type of company that can subsidize this as a loss leader just to build an audience, which is when Google's entrance to a space is scariest. If your core product becomes Google's loss leader, that is a very scary concept for any business.
Well, but the thing is, and they made this mistake early at ClassPass, which was to focus on resource access, and they went way overboard. You could go to virtually any club. Yeah, you could just
it was an unlimited plan. Yeah.
And as a result, the economics didn't work. Now they're starting to focus back on the appointments on a per appointment basis, and that's where you can make a small margin on each of those scheduling events.
Yeah.
Question is, how do they retain those relationships with the gyms, the spas, as Google comes in offering more sophisticated advertising options?
Well, that's also a good point you raised, which I want to circle back to, which is the kind of the barrier to entry here, which, ClassPass has built its way up to where it is, by forming all of these relationships. That's no small task for even someone like Google to go around, and the business development work of starting to work with these gyms or these kind of gym groups, tapping into their scheduling system. That whole thing, that's something, it's the same reason why OpenTable has such a large lead, is all the work it did 10 years ago to go around and physically get all of these locations onto their system. So that makes the switching cost for the small business very high because they're kind of integrated into the system. It also makes OpenTable's barrier to competition very high, and that's kind of what ClassPass has done here. So for Google to do this, the quality of its product is going to be a function of the inventory and the amount of gyms it's working with, and for it to get all those relationships is no easy task. So
and to tell all those stories. And to tell all those stories, because every gym has its own pitch. There might be a great trainer there. There might be a particular form of training that they do, and that you really need to buy in. And I think that's where ClassPass's lifestyle approach is a much more effective way to retain people. And I would say over the next few years, we're going to see a lot more dedicated lifestyle apps by brands as a result of the need to bring that wide range of resources together in a coherent offering.
Yeah, and the modality is important here too. When you mentioned the word app a few times, we're talking about Google search results here. I think one of ClassPass's advantages is that it has planted itself on the home screen as an app of many mobile users, because I think the use case here is being able to schedule things on the go or even in the moment. So Google's ability to take this SERP, search engine result page functionality, and appize it and make it on someone's home screen, as opposed to making someone open up the mobile browser, go to Google, and just the functionality and where it shows up is an important point here. And that's where ClassPass, I think, has a competitive edge against anyone coming into it, including Google.
Yeah. Well, hey, you know what? We covered the entire week's selection. It's the end of the show. Let me tell you a little bit, folks, about BIA Kelsey Local Impact. It's our Empowering Local Strategies conference. It's going to be in Dallas. It's next week, April 5th, at the Aloft Hotel in downtown Dallas, which I've said 3 times now. And we will be doing several more of these impact shows over the course of the summer, and we'll be keeping you up to date on what's coming there. In the meantime, Mike, thanks for another good conversation.
Thank you, Mitch.
We're looking forward to next week. By the way, folks, we are making a formal move from Thursdays at 10 a.m. to Fridays at 10 a.m. Pacific. We'll also, of course, be offering the video archive on our site and on YouTube after the show. So thanks for joining us once again. We'll see you next week, and have a fine local media weekend.